Welcome to Love to See It, a podcast about dating in pod purgatory until you forget where you are and believe that reality only exists within the walls of whatever soundstage Netflix has constructed, and there's no natural light coming in and no sound can get out, and if you scream, no one will ever come to save you.
We are in the pods. We've always been in the pods, and we will always be in the pods. I just exist only in the pods now.
Yeah, I'm a pod person. We're pod people.
We're pod people. We've spent at least 6 hours there, and I think we'll continue to be there forever.
Definitely more. Those episodes are not cut off at an hour.
So true.
Oh my God. The first drop of Love is Blind Minneapolis is out. 6 episodes, and they're all in the pods. And we have deja vu, we have vertigo, we've lost our bearings. Before we get into it, just a little reminder about what we have going on over at our Substack, Rich Text, where we are, of course, covering the traitors periodically throughout the season. We'll be doing a recap of Emma's wedding after it happens later this month. I'm very excited. So it's a busy February.
It really is. And we're having a lot of fun over there. So you can find those episodes at claireandemma.substack.com. Okay, let's get into Love is Blind. For people that follow us both on Substack and here on Love to See It, you probably know that we have traditionally covered Love is Blind over on Rich Text, but we're making the decision. We're bringing it over to the main feed for all of you, and we are so excited.
Yes, we're bringing Love is Blind out of the pods and into the real world here on our public podcast. And we're excited because, when we started Love to See It, The Bachelor was kind of really the only name in the game. It was the hegemonic dating show. And now we have this kind of alternative path of the Netflix cinematic universe of dating shows that has really hit big. And so Love is Blind feels like a really natural part of the conversation we've been having on Love to See It for a while about like what dating shows say about us, say about our culture. And we're excited for this change. So if you have stopped listening to the Bachelor recaps, if you know someone who doesn't watch The Bachelor anymore and they've fallen off the podcast, let them know that we're doing Love is Blind now.
Yeah, we're getting back in the mix. And, we really see this show as about more than The Bachelor, even though we will not forsake our origins.
We will always do The Bachelor.
We will always do The Bachelor. But yeah, we want to broaden the conversation that's happening here on Love to See It. So we hope that you're all excited and we hope that this experiment will go well.
Yeah, we are doing it just in time for people to really finally give up on the Love is Blind franchise based on how this season is going.
So for those of you who perhaps are not familiar with Love is Blind, which honestly probably isn't many of you, but whatever. Love is Blind is a Netflix reality dating show. It first premiered in 2020, right before COVID, and I think really took off in COVID because people were like, wait, now I too understand what it's like to exist isolated from all human contact.
I'm in a pod. They're in a pod. We're the same. What if I were dating? What if we kissed in quarantine? That kind of vibe.
So how the show works is that cast members spend about 10 days dating each other through a wall in pods. They are separated by gender. They can hear each other's voices, but they cannot see each other's faces. At the end of the 10 days, a handful of people propose and get engaged. The show usually follows about 5 couples after the pods who are engaged, and they go on a brief romantic getaway somewhere warm and then spend about a month living together in an apartment building. And at the end of that month, they decide whether or not to get married at the altar on their wedding day.
It's got to be at the altar. There's got to be a big decision made on a platform. It's not really a major reality dating show if there isn't a decision made on a platform about marriage.
And it is even better when all of your closest friends and family are just like waiting for you to get rejected or reject.
Yeah, I want my wedding to have a lot of it being spent being comforted by my loved ones. because I'm sobbing. So the drops of Love is Blind episodes do tend to be big. This first drop is 6 episodes. If you normally follow our Bachelor recaps, we're just going to set expectations here. We will not be obsessively detailed about this recap. We're not going to be getting into every plot point in detail. It's not possible. We would totally lose it and you would lose interest. So instead, we will be focusing on the major moments that stood out to us within each of the relationships that we kind of see develop. Some relationships we might barely mention. There are some that really don't.
We're saying that for ourselves. We're letting it go. Okay,
we're letting it go.
We're teaching ourselves. We don't have to mention everything. It's okay. We really want to drill down to those moments within each relationship that made an impact, that we feel like sparked some sort of discussion for us. So if there's something that stood out to you that we did not mention or we do not mention, we are so sorry. But, we just can't get to it.
We can't do it. So again, this is season 8 of Love is Blind, set in Minneapolis. The season was filmed in February and March of 2024, so about a year ago. And Nick and Vanessa actually announced during the premiere that this is the largest cast they've ever had. It doesn't feel like it. We spend pretty much the whole season or the whole drop with 4 people. And I don't really feel like I got to know anyone else very well.
And none of those 4 people get engaged. So time well spent.
So some trends this season before we dig into the details. One thing I immediately noticed was that it's pretty white. Like almost all the relationships we follow are between white daters.
Which is actually really unusual for Love is Blind.
Yeah, there's usually a more diverse main cast that ends up emerging. There's one love triangle in which all of the love interests are Black, but it's a lot of white people, a lot of like blonde women who went to Catholic school. So relatedly, it's very Catholic. There are so many ex-Catholic school kids on this show.
Yeah, everyone is either like reacting to the fact that they have drifted from their Catholicism or trying to like integrate their current Catholicism into their daily lives. There's going to be a lot for you to comment on, Claire.
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, another lapsed Catholic who went to Catholic school just like me. And then by the end I was like, oh, another lapsed Catholic.
They're all lapsed Catholics from the Midwest, just like you, Claire.
I guess this is what dating would have been like if I had stayed. It's pretty bleak. 2 of them actually have a whole conversation about how The Exorcist is too scary to watch because exorcism is real. And the woman saw a video in Catholic school of a real priest talking about a real exorcism with his real words. And they both believe every word of it. And are like, yes, you saw the video of the priest talking about exorcism. Therefore, exorcism is real. Don't mess with demons. You will get haunted.
As we know, Catholic priests, notorious truth tellers, very reliable, never do anything deceptive.
It is just funny because I remember going to Catholic school and I was quite an observant Catholic at the time, as we've discussed. I believed in the major doctrines, including some that I now find really horrifying. But this kind of stuff, like, I guess I always assumed that everyone thought it was ludicrous. Like when we would learn about something like exorcism, I was like, but we don't believe any of that. That's crazy. And it turns out a lot of people, even people who do not stay Catholic, really just believe that you will get possessed by devils and that an exorcist priest will have to come and save you.
I feel like for some of them, they're just like, I don't know. Seems like a fun thing to buy into.
Why not believe in it? What's the harm?
You know what? There's so
in
much horror in this world. Being possessed by demons seems a lot less scary than a lot of what's going on right now. I would take
that is true. Another thing I noticed about this season is that it is extremely repetitive, and it's not just the Catholic school stuff. I was getting deja vu. I was disoriented. I was like, didn't I already watch this?
That's what I was going to say. I was very disoriented, and I got to episode 4, and I was like, how could there possibly be 2 more episodes in this same setting? Like, what's happening? What time is it? Where am I? Like,
is this the floor or the ceiling? Like,
I was like, wait, they seem to be having the same conversation. No, that's different people.
Different people keep having the same conversation. That happens, but why are they showing all of them to us?
Right,
Like, the
that's a
pacing
choice. I don't blame the daters, to be clear. Like, you've got a lot of
Right.
time. You've got to cover some ground. You've got to talk about your middle names and your dad's names and like where you went to school. I
Two
get it.
women tell their number one guys that they have the same names as their dads, but it's fine because they love their dads. And I'm like, that's a fine conversation to see one time. I don't
Right,
need
like
to
we
see
didn't
two
we didn't
people
need it
have
twice. That's not interesting. And I know there's a lot of stuff you're leaving on the cutting room floor.
Right. And maybe they want to pull out themes, but we don't need themes in the filler, you know?
Right.
It was a little too much. Two women talk about how sometimes they wear sexy Halloween costumes and sometimes they wear cute, silly Halloween costumes.
That is
I've heard about specific Halloween costumes that like 4 of the women have worn.
And you're like, yeah, most women tend to have worn some sexy Halloween costumes and some silly ones.
It's also like the right answer in this context, right? I'm sexy, but I'm also funny. I'm the perfect wife. Like, you'll laugh with me. You'll be like, ooh, I want to tear off her Gwen Stefani costume. What else are you going to say? I always look hideous. There are also multiple conversations about getting matching tattoos or how they're fated to be together because they like the same very popular movie.
Okay, we got to put a pin in that one because I have a lot of thoughts
about one instance of that.
Yes.
There's also one where the two of them are like, we both watched The Sound of Music growing up.
Oh,
and
yeah.
we like know it really well.
I was like, everyone watched The Sound of Music growing up.
Yeah, they're like, my grandma loved it. And it's like, yeah, there were like 4 movies back then. Of course she loved
Also,
The Sound
it is
of
a
Music.
classic.
It's a classic. Okay, yes, we have to move on to another bit of pre-recap business, which is the gossip.
Oh, God. Which is gossip. And I think that this is just happening more and more as like people familiarize themselves with the flow of this show. So there's a lot more like constant updates and sightings of like who is filming in what city. So unsurprisingly, people started coming out of the woodwork to say that some of these people, mostly dudes, but some women too, kind of suck. And I do want to caution everyone that most TikToks you see, especially ones that are very vague, should definitely be taken with a grain of salt. And that's why I tend to look at creators like Storytime with Ricky and Reality Ashley, who actually do the due diligence of getting receipts for the gossip that they report on. So I would look to them before you start amplifying anything.
This is a great way to go kind of viral.
Yes.
Is to say like, I have dirt on a Love is Blind person, and people have done that before to kind of troll, get a reaction. And so you do have to be kind of careful. I know at least one of the people that I saw posting about this seemed to have like a pretty active TikTok like career, like was clearly sort of has been trying to make it as a TikTok creator for a while. So like you do kind of have to be a little bit careful. That doesn't mean that they aren't telling the truth, even if they do have ulterior motives and want attention. They can still be telling the truth.
Yes, everyone might be telling the truth, but we want to be careful when amplifying those rumors, especially on like a larger scale.
And a lot of them are not like, at least in some cases they're dropping identifying info where we can definitely tell who they're talking about. In other cases they're just being like, oh, I have some stories about these guys.
Yeah, and then someone will follow up. I was listening to Reality Ashley and Storytime with Ricky's latest podcast where they were doing a little like mini tea drop, and they were saying like some of these videos, someone was like, oh, I like me realizing I've chatted or like gone on dates with several of these guys. And then it's like, oh, she had a great experience with one of them and a bad experience with another one and didn't identify
so it's really
them.
only dirt about one guy.
Right. And you're like, oh, I mean, also I would,
like
to
dirt
be clear,
on like 4 guys. Yeah.
I would love to hear people's like great experiences with some of the cast members. We love positive gossip.
More people should come forward to talk up the guys who go on these shows.
It also seems like there were 2 different women who posted about women cast members and called them out as like bad bosses. So people were assuming, oh, you're talking about PTSD you got from a man. And they're like, no, actually, I just had a bad
Yeah.
boss. And
The girl boss reckoning
Yeah.
has come to dating reality TV.
Yeah. One of those creators, I think, had identified one of the women, and it was someone who like we barely see on the show.
Again, it was one of those situations where she gave identifying information and it was
Yes.
obvious who she was talking about.
The other one, I don't know if they were identifiable, but there is one video that seems to have broken through from internet land actually onto the show itself, which I think is a first that we've seen. You know, we've seen them address a couple of times things that come out during the show airing, during the reunion. We have yet to see something like a tea drop from TikTok make it on to the show itself while they're filming. So this is a first. A pretty major TikTok creator, her handle is Hope You Find Your Dad on TikTok. She mostly covers politics, actually. She posted 2 videos on March 2nd, 2024. And in one of them, she is crying, talking about a man who, quote, treats women terribly and manipulates and lies all the time. She also suggests that this man went on television not to get married, but just for exposure. She says he's a terrible person. She does not name the man, nor does she share any like very specific details about what happened between the two of them. But she does say that she met him on the University of Minnesota campus and that she was like at least a few years younger than him. Commenters have since deduced from the clues that she did drop. I think one of the videos talked about him being a former baseball player, that the man she is talking about is Ben, who does become a major character on this season.
And what's interesting is he's not the only University of Minnesota baseball player who is a major character on the show, but she also mentioned that he was a star, expected to go pro, and then instead got into making YouTube videos and tried to make a YouTube career happen. And these pieces have, like, that's a lot of information.
Did you see what Storytime with Ricky reported about the fact that apparently Ben used to, after he was intimate with a woman, leave her some of his like self-printed YouTube business cards, like here's my channel, like next to the bed. Incredible. A bunch of women.
If you're getting around enough, you can really organically grow your audience that way.
Well, I think that was his hope, and now all of these women have them, like a little souvenir. So they sent sweet photos to Ashley and Ricky, which is just
oh my God,
absolutely hilarious.
So so this one, despite lacking any like really concrete evidence or details even, has gathered a lot of buzz around it, and like other people and comments being like, oh, I've also heard so many stories. Like, again, nothing really tangible, but because of that, it became like a bigger conversation. And it seems like because she posted this during filming, it got back to the woman that he met on the show during filming. And so the season 8 trailer shows this woman, Sara, confronting him. And she says, there's this girl on TikTok. She's crying. I need you to tell me everything.
So that is going to be fascinating, I think, to watch.
I agree.
Apparently, Ben has already made his Instagram comments private, even before the season started. So buckle up, buddy.
It's going to be interesting. I am nervous. Like, we're taping this still like a full week before the show comes out, and I'm like, how much more gossip and tea will
maybe we'll be out of date. Again, we're telling you now. We are situating ourselves. If there's something that comes out, we will address it next week, and that's all we can do. And it's time to get into the pods for all 6 episodes. Oh my goodness, it's so much time in the pods. Just to have you understand how crazy this is. Usually we spend about 4 episodes in the pods. And if the first drop is 6 episodes, we get at least an episode and a half of the couples on their like happy couple vacations, maybe having a mixer among the engaged couples. We don't make it out. We barely make it out of the hotel that they're staying at night.
Yeah. That's why the the vibe is sort of cask of Amontillado. It's like I'm bricked in a maze. I can't get out. We don't see sunlight for more than like 30 seconds.
Exactly. So we are going to go like love triangle or couple or love square by love triangle,
couple, or love square. So let's start with Molly, David, and Lauren. I think we both have a lot to say about David.
Dave. I guess he goes by Dave.
He goes by both.
Dave is 33. He's in medical device sales. And he is the guy who just negs women constantly.
Yeah, negging women is his brand. It's his form of humor. Nothing's funnier than making women feel just a little bit insecure and like they want to prove that they're chill and you can win them over.
He's also the guy who is there to work out his shit on women. So we're starting real strong with Dave.
So he works in medical aesthetics. It sounds like his medical device sales career revolves around the kind of medical devices where he's just around like Botox and filler treatments, and he expects women to look like he has had all of those procedures. And he's like, gosh, maybe that isn't the healthiest thing for me. And maybe I should try to detox from that by trying to fall in love with a woman who maybe doesn't have so much Botox and filler. I think that's going to go really well for me.
God.
And he tells one woman he's dating that, you know, pursuing this kind of specific look hasn't worked out for him. And he's like, there's many ways to be a beautiful woman. As long as you're beautiful, I guess.
I would not want to be the woman who Dave dates after having this like revelation.
What is wild is that he says this to the woman that ends up getting engaged to him. Like I like this woman. She absorbs so many red flags.
Yes. I do think there's a thing that happens sometimes with women where you're like, okay, I actually expect that there's a lot of men who have these thoughts or this kind of history. And so there's almost like, oh, well, at least you said it. You said it and you want to do better. So like you get a gold star. And what it can actually mean is that like he's in the middle of deconstructing that and like you are going to be the tool for that deconstruction.
Yeah. Or maybe he knows it's a bad idea and yet he will never deconstruct it.
Right.
Fully.
Right. He's like, I wish to not want this, but that's still what I'm attracted to. It's like I would have been very worried, and yet he ends up right in the center of a love triangle between two women who seem lovely.
Yeah. He opens every date with, what's wrong with you? Haha. Because why are they single? Why would a woman be dating unless something was wrong with her? She should be married already.
And also,
I noticed with one woman that he actually likes immediately, he catches himself halfway through saying, what? And asks her why she's there instead.
What brought you here?
He's like, oh, so let me ask, why are you here? I was like, you were going to say, what's wrong with you again, weren't you, Dave?
He also, one woman says that she's 30 and he's like, so you're not attractive.
Oh, you know what? That's actually why. He opens with that.
Yeah.
And then he's like, wow, I've been such a dick right up front. She's going to leave. Because she threatens to walk out.
Should I walk out? And this is the woman he ends up engaged to. So bar is truly in hell for men.
He openly also talks about how he's treated women really poorly in the past. And again, the women are just like, thanks for being so honest about how you are not a safe person for women to be around.
See, I feel like this happened with, was it Steven and Monica last season? Where it's like, he was like, yeah, I cheated on like multiple exes, but I'm so sad about it. And Monica's just like, wow, that's like so brave of you to own that. And then
I'm sure this won't come back around on me in an unpleasant way. I also enjoyed that Dave thinks he just gets it because he has an older sister. So like he gets what women need. But then we learn he has the kind of older sister who didn't want him to sign up for Love is Blind because she, quote, doesn't think any of those girls are good enough for you. So what I'm hearing is his sister is like a misogynist.
Yeah. His sister is like, my brother is incredible. He's perfect. No one will be good enough for him.
I have two amazing brothers. It wasn't that hard to find two women who are good enough for them. There are a lot of amazing women out there.
That's the thing. Like, come on.
I think very highly of my brothers.
You
And,
do.
like, I didn't have to work too hard to ensure that they ended up with great women, and they did. So, like, where does she get off? Like, what is her problem? She thinks that she's the only woman who's like good enough to be around her brother, and this is the person that he's learned about women from. So, red flag for me.
I have concerns. I have a lot of concerns about Dave. It's just a vibes thing.
I have a bad fashion feeling about Dave as well, because he is always wearing no-show socks with his suede Chelsea boots.
Like, I need menswear guy to just devastate Dave.
I don't even care if this is an official fashion don't. It just so obviously looks bad to have your pants right up and there's just your shin in between your suede boot and your
It's not
pants.
good. It's not
You gotta
good.
wear socks. Socks are in. Socks are fashionable. Why were so many people wearing no-show socks this season?
This guy's 33. Okay, I guess he's a millennial, but he's a little younger than us.
You got to hear the good news about socks. We're allowed to have them covering our ankles again. He also, in a personal red flag, says that he can read but not comprehend what he reads, which is reading.
He's like, I can individually understand what say each word.
He can sound out words.
Right. Am I like paying attention to their meaning? No.
He once got a 6% on an English test. In that case, to be fair, he says he didn't even try to read the book. Which,
look,
okay.
We're not like here to judge people based on their grades in high school. But this just doesn't sound like a man who's trying.
Dave is the person who I have like by far the longest list of just random things that annoyed me about him.
Before we started, we were like, Dave is so annoying to us, but also there aren't like sex criminal rumors about him. So
that we know of. Hey,
so
he might be the best guy on the season. We'll see. We'll see how this all shapes out.
You never know.
So the people he ends up in a love triangle with are Lauren, 31, an educational sales rep. She is a former teacher. And Lauren is the woman that he ends up with. She seems almost like, I think, too nice, accommodating in certain ways. Like, she really wants to give him another chance whenever he says something rude to her. And she seems like someone that I think we would mostly like. She has a "fuck the patriarchy" tattoo on her wrist.
I know, relatable.
Yeah. Emma, I can't believe you don't have the same one.
I know. I have something similar. So
exactly.
We can bond.
Yeah, almost matching. And then there's Molly, who is 30, an executive assistant, and also a dancer. And Dave seems to fixate on this because at one point he's like, "What would your schedule be like? Just dancing, right?" And she's like, "No, I have a job."
Well, Dave loves when girls have their own hobbies, Claire. He loves that. It's so cute.
Well, she's got to keep busy.
When a girl has a hobby.
He doesn't want her to be like, "Oh, come home and make dinner with me tonight." She needs to have something going on.
She could just have a little hobby for herself. It's so cute.
We know that he loves dancers. He's like, "She's my usual type." I don't know about a teacher. Teachers are nerdy, and that is not my usual type.
I was like, this is insane. You think all teachers look the same? What are you talking about?
They're all wearing the little round glasses, and they have their hair in a mousy bun.
Yeah. It's so bizarre. Also, just huge red flag for me. I'm like, if you're thinking about this, I'm very concerned that you're on this show.
Yeah. Molly is easy for me to keep track of, though, because she is a redhead with bangs.
Yeah.
So it did not take me long to remember who she is. There's lots of blonde and blonde hair in this season. And at first it was hard for me to keep track of people. And then the men all look sort of like thumbs with hair, which is totally valid, but it was hard for me to tell them apart right up until the bitter end.
Fair. That's really fair.
So they end up in this classic Love is Blind love triangle where Molly is the fun one and Lauren is the deep one who provides a calm and welcoming space for him to share his really vulnerable thoughts and feelings.
Yeah. Yeah. I just feel like we've seen this where it's always he's gonna pick Lauren and then he's gonna be like, oh, she's not fun and she's not like sexy enough and like and then like he's not going to end up with her.
They end up with often like two people that they wish were one person, and it's like, sorry, they're not one person.
You can't combine women. It's not how that works.
If only. And with Lauren, they have this kind of steady relationship, and with Molly, he's like, we just keep things light and fun. Like, we get along so well, we laugh. She has a very like similar sense of humor to him, so she's not offended when he negs her all the time.
It's very like Shane and Shayna.
Yes. And he sees her as super non-judgmental. So he shares with her that he cheated on his last girlfriend, and that's why the relationship ended. And she is like, even more than Monica, she's like so chill with this. She's not even like, well, if you really understand that it was bad, then you're learning. She's like, okay, we all have a past. Whatever. And he's like, don't worry. If I'm married, I will no longer entertain women who come up to me in Vegas.
He's so generous.
Very specific. He's constantly being approached in Vegas by women. But once he's married, that will end.
They do, however, get a little bit deep when they bond over their shared libertarianism.
That was like so, like, of course.
I know.
It's like, like, it's so, why do we have to be so divided? Why can't we just like understand each other's positions?
All love each other.
For example, like, I have positions, some of them are more conservative and some of them are more liberal. I love keeping all my money and spending it on cool stuff for myself. I hate it when women can't get abortions, which I'm like, I do agree with half of that, but it kind of seems like you don't understand how all this stuff pieces together into policy.
No. He's like a classic, like, hey, I'm just like fiscally conservative, socially liberal. Like, what's the problem? I was like at least relieved to hear him be like, I do want women to have access to abortions. And also, if my child came out to me, because Molly asks, like, if your kid, told you that they were LGBTQ, how would you feel? And he gives a good answer. He says, like, I would just be happy that my child felt comfortable enough to like share who they are with me. And I was like, okay, Dave. Yeah. Great. And then he's like, I don't want to give even one red cent of my hard-earned money that I pulled myself up from my bootstraps.
I think I'm getting a little bit cheating crackers about Dave, because I feel like my response to his answer was like, he was very like, I can't believe they would be so brave as to tell me that they're not straight. And I was like, okay, well.
I do think what he was trying to say is like that, like I thought it came from a good place.
And honestly, he might be right about the direction the country is headed in and how much courage is going to really be required, which is dark. The difference between the two relationships, I think, can be summed up in this one very telling bit of symmetry. There's an episode where Dave tells Molly that his right testicle is throbbing. And then later in a conversation with Lauren, he's like, my heart is throbbing with emotion.
We all know on this show, the heart tends to trump the testicle.
Yeah.
Which
beautiful. Is so beautiful. And he does the thing where he gives both of them a lot of validation, and they end up a little bit confused. Like, he tells Lauren he wants to cancel his next date one evening, and then instead he goes to the date with Molly, of course, and has basically the same conversation about tattoos that Lauren brought up with him. So like, he's letting those relationships like bleed into each other a little bit.
He's confused.
Yeah. It's almost like they're two sides of the same girlfriend, the same perfect girlfriend that he wants to create.
He's like, but who's hotter?
Oh, it's so hard to tell. One of them got a tattoo while she was on a girls' trip, and one of them is a dancer. Oh. But things ultimately get pretty tense on the women's side of the pods, because Lauren is playing her cards close to the vest. She's not really telling anyone who her number one is. But Molly is talking a lot about who she's dating. She's a much more like extroverted person.
She's very extroverted, and it does seem like she thought she knew who Dave's other connection was, and she didn't think that it was Lauren. Yeah. So she is not being cautious around Lauren. And Lauren realizes, obviously, that she and Molly have the same number one.
Well, what ultimately happens is that Molly thinks Lauren knows. Lauren's like, oh, I actually don't know. Molly whispers to her, it's Dave. And while Lauren is looking sick to her stomach, Molly, who's very like giddy about the date she just had, jokes like, I have a husband. And that really wigs Lauren out because she just found out that her number one has another relationship that this woman feels really confident about.
Yeah,
and
she
didn't
starts to get
realize
very
that was
confused.
happening. And she's like, is Molly doing this like kind of on purpose? Like, is she talking up how good her connection is with Dave to like mark her territory and kind of warn me off? Is she just clueless? Like, I don't really know. Like, she's questioning everything. And she starts to like distance herself from Molly in the women's quarters. And then Molly comes back after a really good date with Dave and is like, my number one just told me I was his number one. And Lauren hears this and is like,
what?
She's like, well, I don't even know if I don't really believe that's true. But if it is true, then like Dave is misleading me or like manipulating me because he seems really all in with me. So he couldn't be telling someone else that she's his number one and saying what he's been saying to me. But ultimately, this ends up kind of like pushing Dave and Lauren together. So if Molly did do it in order to mark her territory, it backfired.
And I don't think she did.
I don't either. I think she's just someone who Lauren is much more
like controlled.
It's much more and like I think it can be hard to look at someone who is much more open about things and not think, well, they're choosing to do this. It just probably feels much more natural for them to talk about everything they're feeling.
Yeah, I really didn't get the sense, especially because of what we see once Dave does make a decision from Molly. Like, she's so upset at the thought later on that she might have unintentionally offended Lauren that...
Yeah, she just has no idea. I could definitely, I mean, we both podcast for a living and I say all kinds of stuff. I'm sure I've said stuff without even really thinking about it that has been offended like people. And so I see where Molly's coming from, but Lauren is very skeptical and Lauren ends up like confronting Dave about what she heard. She's like, is it true that you said that? And if you did, like, why would you say that and also say these things to me? And Dave seems really put upon and says, this is what I didn't want to happen, to get caught up in the girl drama.
Oh, Dave, another mark against you. That's so condescending.
It's so condescending. And it shows like a certain amount of dismissiveness towards the feelings of the women that he supposedly respects enough to want to marry. Like, keep me out of this like silly, frivolous bullshit. No, this is about you convincing two women that you like them the best. So maybe what's happening here is not girl drama. It's you're the drama, Dave.
Right.
Are you the drama?
Causing drama.
And Lauren is like, it's not girl drama. It's you. You need to figure out what you want because it's confusing for us. Unfortunately, for me, because I wanted her to be like, fuck off and die.
She does not.
She's like,
I'm in this. Here's the thing. Once people like convince themselves that someone is a good match for them, there's just such inertia to make it to the end and get engaged. Yeah. Like, I get it. I would get caught up in it too.
I mean, it happens in every relationship. I definitely had arguments with Greg where if it were a first date, I would have been like, moving on to the next guy. But you've been together for like 6 months and you're like, I thought this person was perfect. Well, surely we can just work this out and he'll realize that he was wrong. You know, like once you're invested, you accept a lot more. And so she's like, let me convince you. You were really my number one from day one. So maybe that will help you understand that I'm all in this with you. And Dave is like, okay, that's good to know. And he then says that Molly let slip to him that he's her only one. And he didn't like that she did that. But it's been holding him back with Lauren that he doesn't know if she has other options. And I'm like, so you're both like annoyed at Molly for giving you this information. And also you're like, it's a problem for my relationship with Lauren that I don't have this information.
He's so annoying.
Okay, so Dave then says he actually denies that he ever told Molly she was his number one choice. And he's like,
And we
I
don't
can,
see it, so we don't know
we
exactly what
don't
was
see it.
said.
And also, I think sometimes these things are just like stupid telephone things where they say something
Right.
that makes you believe that
That
it's a
you're the number
declaration that you're the
one.
number
Yeah,
one.
like
And
I've
then
never
you,
felt this way about anyone else.
yeah.
You might interpret
Or like,
that.
there's
So,
no one else here that I feel this strongly about
right,
is something that would
exactly.
definitely lead me to say, like, he told me I was number one. And he's like, well, I never said that. I can see myself proposing to you. I've never said that to Molly. You're the only person I feel that way about. And then he starts to get emotional and be like, I'm reverting to old patterns by being afraid of my feelings for you.
Okay.
And so now he's like, upon being confronted, is like, no, actually, I like you the best. And that's why I'm running away. But I didn't say to Molly that I liked her the best. That's not what happened. So after this, Lauren is feeling like really reassured. She like bounces back into the women's quarters, all perky. And Molly has been sitting with the other women, basically waiting for Lauren to come back in heartbroken because she says that Dave told her on their date that he planned to probably break up with Lauren on this date.
Madison relays this to Lauren and is like, I think he's playing both of you.
And Lauren's like, yeah. And yet they end up engaged. I'm just going to keep saying that. So then Molly confronts Dave about this. She's like, you didn't break up with Lauren. He's like, I never said that I would end it, just that I would be fine with it ending after this date.
Okay, Dave.
He's got like a little list of the exact verbiage he used in all of these conversations.
He's basically like, well, but I had this amazing date with Lauren and that changed my feelings and I'm just confused and I'm crying and I'm just a sad boy.
So Molly has to kind of matter-of-factly like take charge of what's happening here, which is clearly a breakup, but he's not saying it. And she's like, do you and Lauren have a stronger emotional connection? And he says, yes. And he's like, I want to like pursue this things. I want to keep pursuing things with Lauren. And she's like, okay, so you've made your decision. And he's like, yeah, but I hate that it's like that. I hate that I like made a decision. And then he's like, why are you so cool about this? And she says, I'm not, but I wanted to be chosen. If someone's not choosing me, I'm not their person. So like, what's the point of
men always do this. They're like, I want to break up with this woman, but I also need her to be like very upset about it.
She should, first of all, do the breakup for me and also be devastated.
Be devastated in a way that like makes me sure how much she felt for me, but also not in a way where she's like mad at me.
I, many years ago, read a fan fiction that always stuck with me that exemplified the kind of like perfect male breakup, which was, it was about Orlando Bloom and like his non-celebrity imaginary girlfriend. Like she finds out that she realizes he's fallen in love with his co-star or something. And so she like comes to him and basically like sets him free because she can't hold him back. And she knows like this is his life now. And she's like weeping crystalline tears, but she understands. And he like gently holds her. And like, it's just so beautiful and romantic. And everything just works out great for this guy. He's got one beautiful woman like happily crying for him. And she's giving him up for a better life. And then he's got like his movie star hottie girlfriend waiting in the wings. And it was a bananas thing to write as a fan fiction. But that is what Dave wants. And that is what men usually want in this scenario. And of course, like breakups are hard. You want it to be painless, both easy, painless, and also like validate that you were wanted.
It was real. Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, I'm not really going to do that. But what she does want is for him to actually say that he is ending things. And so finally she's like, what do you want? It feels like you're trying to choose her, but you don't want to say it. So you're making me say it, which was my impression of what was happening as well. And he's like, I thought I did say it. And from then on, he is very aggrieved and talks about it extensively to Lauren, that she tried to spin it as him not really making the decision and saying it, but he totally did. I missed it personally.
You were talking around it. Also, just, if she needs that, maybe you could just like do what she needs.
Right. She's the one walking away, not having gotten what she wanted out of this scenario. So maybe man up and say, I don't think this is the right connection for me. I'm choosing
maybe
to end it and move forward with Lauren. So Molly comes back in tears. She and Lauren like finally talk directly and kind of clear the air about the awkward tension between them. And Lauren seems to be kind of really on Molly's side here. And I was like, maybe she'll break up with him.
No.
She doesn't. She gets engaged to him, just to put that out there again. But she's like, he is too good at validating people. He shouldn't have put us in that position. It's not your fault, Molly. Like, it's fine.
I mean,
and
correct.
Molly kind of like encourages her to just go for it. She's like, it's fine. I understand. And so ultimately they do work things out. He kind of seems in their conversation to like flip things on Molly a little bit.
Yeah.
He kind of throws Molly under the bus. He's like, we broke up, but I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't promise anything to Molly. And then she came in here and tried to flip it on me when I was ending things with her. She didn't even care about it. She was pretty cool and didn't care. I found this unseemly as well.
She's
trying to preserve her dignity in this moment.
Yeah.
And you're going and talking shit to her friend about how she didn't cry enough and act devastated enough that you are
really like annoyed me. I really did not like it.
So he ultimately proposes to Lauren by telling her that she just, quote, naturally has those motherly nurturing qualities, and those are, quote, weird things to be attracted to. But I am. I don't even have time to unpack all of that.
I'm speechless. Claire, I'm speechless.
He's like, you know what a normal thing to be attracted to is? Lip filler. You know what a weird thing to be attracted to is? The main thing that like men have talked about being attracted to about women since time immemorial, which is their nurturing qualities that make them seem like they would take care of me and my children.
Pretty gross if you ask me. Mothers.
It's like
pretty terrible.
But this is how it works. It's like the obsession with like natural motherliness does come with that Madonna whore complex. Like you're both putting them on a pedestal for how motherly they are in this like intangible way that other women aren't like that. They're not natural mothers the way that you are. But also that's kind of not sexy, right?
Yeah, because you can't win. That's why.
Right.
That's why Dave just might need a Madonna and a whore in his life.
I think that's sometimes why these love triangles with the men in the middle feel so icky, because it feels like it comes down to them not being able to resolve the fact that their wife will be both the mother of their children and also
their sex
partner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they're like, oh no, those two qualities don't go together in a woman. I have two different women who represent those two different things to me, and I guess I have to pick whether I want a motherly woman or a woman I can have sex with for the rest of my life. Oh, it's so hard. And then they have their reveal meeting, which goes about as well as you could hope. He's wearing an ill-fitting burgundy suit with black Oxford shoes and no socks.
This man is morally opposed to socks.
A sockless look with black Oxfords.
It's bad. It's bad, and the suit just doesn't fit him.
Yeah. There's a collar gap at the pants. I can't even. Lauren admits before this to being nervous because she knows that he usually dates hot women, and that's been a fixation for him. And when they meet, his vibe is off to me. Like, he seems less really excited than a bit thrown by how like she looks.
Fine with her.
Right.
Right? But not like, oh my God, you're so beautiful, which is what a lot of the men say.
Usually they're very excited to finally see this person. They're like, oh, and now I'm putting this beautiful face. And he's sort of like looking at her hard, like okay.
Are you?
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I could work with this. That's the vibe I was getting.
He says that she doesn't look how he expected and that he can see her as a teacher now. And remember what he said about teachers before, which is that they're nerdy. And not his type. Like, overall, this does not play badly. Like, it's not done with music or whatever.
I don't think he's like actively unattracted to her. I just think he's not like blown away. And this is a guy who has been quite open about the fact that he like has traditionally seen women as sexy objects. So I'm just a little nervous for Lauren.
Yeah. The show is definitely, to me, edited in a way that is not playing this up. Like, they're in trouble. There's no like music cues or anything to suggest that. But when we see this kind of reaction, it often comes out later.
Yeah. that there is like
they
a
were
gap in
underwhelmed
attraction.
physically. Yeah. Ugh. And Lauren is like,
I like
not
Lauren.
the show is not about looks, but she is super cute and like beautiful and deserves someone who is really excited to see her. Like
I
we all
agree.
do.
I'm going to say I don't think they're going to end up together, but we shall see.
All right. So our next love triangle is Virginia, Devin, and Brittany. They are the one sort of group of Black daters that we really see in depth. Virginia is 34. She's a healthcare recruiter. She has a doctorate. She wrote her thesis on racial bias in healthcare. And so she works now like on improving patient experiences in healthcare, which is like really important work, and also work that the Trump administration is trying to make illegal, which is
Yep.
really terrifying. She's a former NBA dancer. And Devin is 29. He's at the center of the love triangle. He's a youth director and coach. He coaches girls basketball, and he's played basketball previously. And so they do connect a little bit on the basketball, but more importantly, they went to the same high school. He was
5 years apart.
5 years apart. He was 5 years behind her. And I love that the age difference doesn't really come up aside from
Only in
clocking
like
this.
the beginning.
Yeah, they like clock that that's a thing, but it doesn't like become a whole like, oh, could you ever date an older woman thing?
No. Also, it becomes very clear very early that Devin prefers to date women who are a few years older than him.
His other love interest, Brittany, is 35, so she's also older. She's a partnership executive, and she also coached actually D1 basketball. I love Brittany. She has really fun
I
fashion.
love her.
So that was always like a visual treat. Like they have one tough conversation, but she's wearing a fluffy orange mini dress with silver boots.
It's
and
really
so
good.
It was just a visual oasis for me during the conversation.
She also wears a lot of like hot pink. It's very fun. She and Virginia, I actually really like both of them.
I think it was Brittany who at one point was like, partnership is so great. Like, maybe you just need to like drive to get an outfit or a dress.
Yes, that
and
was
it's going to take an hour and a half. And I was like, what? That never happens to me.
My partner is not just like, I'll drive you. Of course I'll go with you to get a dress. That's
I will
the kind
say
of activity we would split up on, to be honest.
Partnership for me is when Greg takes a bunch of my online returns to the post office.
You know what? That is love. That's beautiful, Claire.
That is beautiful. So Virginia and Devin's main challenge is that Virginia like struggles to open up about personal things. We don't like see so much of their relationship. I felt like this love triangle was like a little bit underdeveloped, to be honest.
Well, I thought it was so interesting because we see a lot of conversations between Virginia and Devin where Devin is like, I need more from you. I need to go deeper. And then once his relationship breaks down with Brittany, he's just like, well, Virginia's it for me. We're a perfect match. And I'm like, Did you ever get deeper? Because I don't really feel like I saw it.
They have like one conversation where he's like, okay, we keep talking about how much we like food and or whatever, burritos, but proposals are in like one day. So maybe you could tell me
Give me
a
little
thing
something
about you. And what she admits is that her grandparents were kind of her only example of a healthy marriage, and that has made her really guarded. So she kind of gives ultimately like opens up by providing an explanation for why she can't open up.
Right. But we just don't learn that much about her. So I feel like I have a lot of question marks about how good of a match the two of them are.
Yeah. Same.
We almost see more between Devin and Brittany.
Yeah. I mean, Brittany is much more open. She's very fun. She's like got a bigger personality. And their relationship is originally kind of rooted in this shared passion for basketball. And he shares with both of them, but first I think with Brittany, that he had like this big formative trauma when he fell playing basketball and had a back injury that resulted in this like mysterious pain. He couldn't play anymore. And he kept seeing doctors. Nothing was working. He was taking more and more painkillers.
He was like abusing I think like ibuprofen.
Yeah. And he says that ultimately he sort of turned back to prayer and to God and tried one more doctor. And the doctor discovered that it was because his femurs were like grating against his pelvis. I don't know. It sounded very
extremely painful.
That's like body horror for me. So but he's well now. Like, basically, they found what was going on. They were able to resolve the issue.
And now he feels like he seems his like religious, like his faith seems very strong as a result of
his
that
takeaway was
experience.
that like kind of prayer got him through. And many ibuprofens a day did not get him through. It was ultimately prayer.
And obviously like him being able to like do what he loves, again, basketball, has made him like very grateful for the life that he has.
Yeah.
So things kind of break down between Devin and Brittany after. So he opens up to her about this incident and, you know, his abuse of these medications and the shame he has around that. And Brittany is super supportive. I thought she was like amazing in receiving this. And so in return, she talks about her shame that she held through a lot of her life about her sexuality. And she tells him essentially that she is queer. She doesn't put a label on her identity, but she says that she's had sexual relationships with women, a handful of them. She ultimately has never wanted to like get very serious with a woman or marry a woman. She still sees herself marrying a man. Who knows exactly what is behind that. But
yeah,
she like says, you know, I've had these revelations about my sexuality. It sounds like in the last like 5 years or so.
Yeah. I felt for Brittany. I also found, as she was describing this, I found myself really feeling for her former partners who were women.
I know.
It sounds like she ended her last relationship with a woman who could sense that she didn't really see a future, and she had to kind of be like, yeah, I'm going to marry a man. Like, this is not going to rise to that level, which sounds really devastating. But that's what Brittany sees herself. She sees herself married to a man, and that's what she really wants to pursue.
She also makes it clear that she's a monogamous person, regardless of whether she's with a man or a woman.
So this is the thing. He really presses her on whether he's like, so you're still interested in women or no, you're not? And she's like, well, I mean, I am who I am. Like, I'm attracted to women, but I'm monogamous. Like, I want to marry a man, and then I will only be involved with that person.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay.
I mostly really liked Devin, but this response really bothered me. Like she responds to his trauma with such compassion, like not an ounce of like shame or like concern about his character because he abused medication, like just total compassion. And he seems like deeply thrown and concerned that she has been with women, even though she's making it very clear that like she wants to be with him. And I just
right. He's just very like, he's doing the thing that's like, well, I've never been with someone who's dated women. It's a lot for me to process. Like, as a person, it doesn't change how I see you, but like, do I want to be married to someone who has been with women?
And for me, I was like, it absolutely is changing the way that he sees her. She like was essentially went from like great romantic partner to good person.
Right.
Like I really felt him shift for her like in that moment. And she obviously picks up on it. And she's very generous. You know, she says to him, like, it would have been nice to hear you say, like, who cares? That doesn't matter to me at all. But she also says, you know, I don't want you to lie. So.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I will say sometimes the men on this season respond very poorly to stuff that I think they should have responded more supportively to. But if that's how they really feel, then it's better that they don't marry these women.
Right. It's better to have the information.
Yeah. And so she ends up coming back on their next date and is like, well, I thought about it. We aren't a match. I need someone less rigid. I'm clearly not for you. Virginia is wonderful. She's my girl. Congratulations. I hope we'll all be friends.
Yeah. I was like, and Brittany, like, you are a great person. You are very generous at every juncture.
Virginia and Devin do get engaged. They have a pretty uneventful reveal. They're both in purple. I don't know if that was pre-coordinated. He's got like a metallic jacket and she's wearing like a lavender mini dress. And she just says thank you to almost everything he says. She seems really overwhelmed. I couldn't tell if it was just the cameras and the the moment or if she was like, I don't know. Because
I
she's just
know.
like, thank you. Thank you. I'm beautiful. Thank you. Ring. Thank you.
I do wonder if Virginia's life will mesh with Devin's once they're in the real world. I'm very curious.
Yeah.
I really don't feel like I have a sense of it either way.
Well,
Could
like
go
you
either
said, it
way.
was really hard to get to know Virginia. And I honestly don't feel like I have enough of a sense of Devin either. I think they were kind of
Same.
shortchanged on screen time. They're not the only ones who get shortchanged on screen time this season. And yet we have 6 pod episodes. So where did all the time go? We'll get to it.
I know where, we know where it went to 4 people who we will like basically never see again. So that's fun.
Let's talk about someone that we basically don't want to talk about for more than 30
nothing
seconds.
happened between them. Monica and Joey. Monica is 28. She works in digital marketing. At the time of filming, I think she's like between jobs, but is a caretaker for her grandmother. And Joey is a 35-year-old physician's associate. I think he also like buys properties and remodels them. And
Classic.
they are like the closest thing that we get to a golden couple. They like zone in on each other really quickly. They are the first, like we know that during filming, they all do the like proposal and reveals on the same day, but we get their reveal way earlier.
It's actually so obvious because you see so much of Joey in the men's quarters through the rest of the season after they have been shown doing their reveal.
He's also very distinctive because he's the only one with like shoulder length hair.
Yeah, he has shoulder length hair and he has a really intense Minnesotan accent that all the other guys are always trying to kind of like mimic. But to me, his voice sounds like Shane from the Chicago season, but with less repressed rage.
He really is a Shane vibe. Like he's a little floppy. The way Shane was like a little chaotic, but his vibe is like really warm rather than simmering anger.
Yeah. Although it does seem like he's had a tough life in a lot of ways. He seems to have a really upbeat outlook about it. Some people just are that way, and I really respect it. He has 3 sisters. One of them had cerebral palsy, and she died when he was 16. And he's just like, she taught me so much. She's wonderful. And like, I have my 2 sisters who are still here. I'm so close to them.
And that's always a green flag, to be honest, for a man.
And Dave knows that.
Yeah.
So the one other thing that we learn about Joey is that, his mom really struggles financially. His parents are divorced and like he is really anxious about money and like has always prided himself on being able to make enough money to kind of support his mom as well. And Monica's, caring for her family. So she has her own like anxieties around her family's health and they kind of bond over that.
And they just have like a very goofy, light energy.
Yeah.
Like very high, intense energy that I was like, okay, I see it.
The only thing that I would say about them is that it is possible that they are maybe too similar in energy.
Yeah.
But I think they could have a lot of fun together. I don't know.
I agree. We'll see how it plays out, but they are definitely like, we don't see them dating anyone else.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about the love square that I think like really dominated my viewing experience of these 6 episodes, which is why it was really confusing when I realized that none of these people make it out of the pods. I was like, wait, but they're the ones I'm interested in.
I do love that when we talk about people making it out of the pods, and I just imagine them still in there. Like they have to live there forever. We get engaged. They'll only let us out if we promise to get married. So we have Meg, Mason, Madison, and Alex.
A lot of M's.
Basically, Mason and Madison are both at the center of 2 love triangles that are connected by their own relationship. So Meg is 31. She's an oncology nurse and former flight attendant. Like she talks about her sultry flight attendant voice at one point. She grew up really religious, but has kind of broken with that as an adult, and her parents think she's going to hell. Classic experience shared by many people on this show. Mason is 33. He's a cinematographer who had kind of like an unconventional professional path. Like he almost failed out of high school and then he got into this work by getting really involved in the skateboarding scene and being the one who would like film all the tricks that people were trying, and through that like got into cinematography, which is kind of cool. Madison is 28. She is allegedly an artist. I could not find any evidence of this online except for some like really hot photographs of her painting on her Instagram.
So you're like, she does paint.
I believe very much that she paints. I am not convinced that she paints like at a professional level, which is like fine. But it's very much presented like she is a artist who supports herself by working as an artist. And I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. Her Instagram bio says sometimes I paint. So
yeah. Sometimes
she paints.
She doesn't like even post full paintings on her Instagram, and I couldn't find an art Instagram for her or like anything. Anyway, I like Madison. I'm not trying to give her a hard time, but I went digging. Madison had a really tough background. Her mom had her at 19, and her mom and stepfather were both addicts who really have continued to struggle with that. Her stepdad actually died from an overdose when she was in 8th grade. And her younger brother also died in a car accident in 2020. I mean, so she's had
just
a lot
experienced
of
an absolutely astounding amount of loss. And
yeah,
there's just like her story like really broke me. And also the fact that she just seems staggeringly self-aware.
Yeah, she's clearly been in a ton of therapy, and she keeps talking about like what a resourced person she is and how she has like found ways to deal with her trauma and like the impacts of it.
She also has a voice that I was like, you could read audiobooks to me, like a sleepy time story, like great ASMR voice.
It's very soothing.
It's lilting. I would describe her voice as lilting.
She's from Indiana, so, you know, twinsies.
You relate to her.
She left for college, same. And then she was like, I got very adventurous. I went to Paris. I met someone who invited me to like spend a summer in the Middle East learning Arabic and teaching English. So I did
Yeah, she lived in Jordan.
Yeah. So she's like seen a lot. She wanted to like get away from her sort of more provincial upbringing.
And her mother, she's still in touch with her mother, but they seem to have a strained relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. She's like, I love my mom, but she's not like a support for me in any sense. Alex is 29. He's Madison's other love interest. He is a commercial real estate broker. And his sort of whole brand is that he used to be really unattractive, overweight, acne, like teenager who didn't get attention from girls. And like if he told a girl he had a crush on her, she would laugh at him. And now he's like, now I get more attention from women. But it all feels so fake because I'm the same person. So that's why I have to come here to know that they really love me for my insides. This is a real thing that happens. Like if someone is, you know, fat and loses weight and suddenly people start treating them really differently, it can create a lot of like confusion and like trust issues with like, how do I know if someone's being nice to me?
Yeah.
Just because I have
like look different now,
this body that looks like it has more societal value. And so that's his motivation. He says he was bullied really badly as a kid.
Sounded pretty brutal.
Yeah. And he also had a tough time with his family, who was very academically oriented, and he was kicked out of the house in high school because of an academic failure.
He says that he has like very severe ADHD, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. So he and Madison are like bond over this at first, like having had like difficulty when they were younger and having sort of like bloomed a little bit now. But still
they go deep like very quickly, which I think gives them the sense of like their connection being faded very early. And so it's interesting because they have this very strong beginning and then doubts creep in more and more over time.
Yeah. Meg is the other side of Madison's love triangle with Mason. I want to talk about their relationship a little bit. We talked about it a little bit before we taped, and I was sort of like, I just kind of don't really see them together. And I think it's partly because Mason is this sort of like former skater boy, like turned cinematographer who seems sort of like a little bit alt
broodier and
broody
moodier
in a way that matches to me with Madison just instinctively.
Yeah, that's interesting.
And Meg is this very peppy, like seems more like she would have been like on the volleyball team or something. You know what I mean? Or like a cheerleader. But they really bond over having similar tastes. Like she's the one I think where he's talking about how he thinks that she's just like the voice of like a chat robot or something saying all the right things. And she's like, have you seen the movie Her? And he's like, stop. I love the movie Her. And I'm like, you are describing the movie Her.
Okay, but I also think that part of this is in reaction because he brings up the movie Her to Madison, and Madison has not heard of the movie Her.
Right. And so he's like, oh, well, Meg
he's
shares
like,
my
oh my God, there is a woman who knows about that extremely famous movie, Her, starring Scarlett Johansson as the voice. And then she's
like, I think my favorite movie is Inception. And he's like, what?
They're both like, wait, what? No way. No one's ever liked Inception. But my favorite moment,
oh my God,
is when they really bond because they just both like, you know, cultural objects that are underground and outside the mainstream. Like Moulin Rouge, an extremely big box office hit that included like original
two of the
music.
Biggest movie stars in the world.
And also like Christina Aguilera did a whole song for,
which topped the charts for 4 weeks. And it actually was not just Christina Aguilera. It was like
Lil' Kim,
three of the top female pop stars of the time. They did a chart-topping song for.
I was like, sure, Baz Luhrmann, yes, does some campy shit in Moulin Rouge. It is a weird movie. It was still very mainstream at the time, and I was like, is this just like the fact that these people are a handful of years younger than us? So they maybe, but like, guys, Moulin Rouge is not alt.
It's just not. Well, the fact that the other things they're bonding about are like Inception makes me think that they just don't understand what an underground outside the mainstream, because they literally are like, we're the same person. We both like this list of box office hits. And they do bond over something that's a little maybe more out of the mainstream, although honestly still very popular, which is alien conspiracy theories.
Like, a lot of people just like to have fun talking about aliens. I don't know. I don't think that's that weird.
I mean, she brings up Joe Rogan. And, like, I have to be honest, Joe Rogan and his alien conspiracy theory guests are extremely popular. I don't like it, but it's true. And this was the one, like, record scratch moment for me with Meg where I was like, wait, what?
I know, because I loved Meg so much. And then I was like, Joe Rogan, I'm concerned.
And not even just the Joe Rogan thing. I mean, it could have been worse. It could have been like right-wing politics. But she's like, I was listening to this Joe Rogan podcast, right? And like someone was talking about how we all there are like different powers and energies in the universe. And once you reach a certain energy and power, you can control the weather. And maybe natural disasters are superior beings experimenting with us. And I was like, you sound like you are one step away from like a Rothschild style like conspiracy theory.
I'm like getting a little bit concerned that she's like 1 inch away from like, and the Jews control the weather.
The Illuminati / Jews are doing it. Like, you think that some crackpot on Joe Rogan is giving you real information when he says that at a certain energy you can control the weather? That's the level that George Soros is vibrating at. He is attained that plane.
I was like, look, Meg, I hope you are just the type of person that like finds it like fun and goofy to go down these rabbit holes, because the rest of her vibe does not indicate like.
But this is really illustrative of the risks, right? Like, this is how we see the crunchy to
the granola mom to QAnon pipeline.
No, it's so true. It starts out with this like, isn't this like interesting and weird? And then it's like, maybe it's true. And then it's like, maybe.
And then you're like, seed oils are the devil.
Yeah. The Jews are making us have seed oils because of something related to some conspiracy theory about alien tablets that I heard 2 years ago. Like, that's how it happens. It introduces you bit by bit to these irrational ideas about how the world works and how it can be controlled by forces you can't see. And the next
Right.
thing
You
you
think
know,
it's all fun and games until you believe that there's like a child's sex ring like under a pizza parlor. Okay. Like,
exactly.
you
I'm
know,
not saying that she believes that stuff. I'm just saying that we are, in what she's saying, seeing that pipeline in action. So that's Megan Mason. I think we liked Meg aside from
I do.
aside from
I
this.
actually I liked Meg and Mason.
Yeah.
I liked Alex at first, and then I started to get really fucking annoyed with Alex and how he is a man who presents as like, I have this formative trauma, and so I can relate to other people who have like really difficult childhoods. And then it turns out that actually he like can only really wrap his mind around his own trauma. Other people's are a little scary to him.
Yeah, he's really worried that he might have to at some point face some sort of lasting effects or repercussions of Madison's trauma that she's gone through, and that he won't be able to deal with that. So when they're talking about things like issues that they've confronted that are rooted in their childhood, she's very like, no, of course I understand. And he's like, yeah, okay.
But would that affect me badly? Like, what do you think?
Yeah.
Would you ever hurt my feelings? And could I trust you if you did? And it's like,
yeah.
I mean, okay, man, you're just not gonna find a partner who's always going to behave in a way that like comforts your nervous system perfectly.
Yeah. They bring up attachment styles, and she says that she's avoidant, and that's like the death knell. He can't ever forget that. He's had bad experiences with avoidant people, and he can't handle that style of dealing with conflict. And she tries to then kind of reel it back and be like, well, that is how I grew up because of everything that I went through and how I had to cope. But I've really worked on myself, and let me prove it to you. Like, you kind of freaked me out by pulling away so dramatically, but I'm not running. Like, I'm coming back to our next date. I brought you a gift. It's my special stuffy, a bear alien I call Bearlian.
And I'm going to say,
to keep overnight.
She really does not show any indication in these interactions of avoidance. She actually confronts like every ip very head on and in a very mature way.
Yeah, I didn't really see any evidence that she was avoidant. But like that kind of puts the seed in for him that she might be sort of damaged in a way that will make her an insufficient partner for him.
Yeah, at one point he's like, yeah, sure, we all have our issues, but can I deal with yours? Like,
yeah, he sometimes presents it in this way that's like, I just want to be sure I can support you in this. And she's like, well, no, I'm basically fine.
I support myself.
I support myself. And he's like, well, yeah, but like, I just don't know if I'd be able to. And it becomes clear that he's not really worried about if he can support her. He's worried about if he'll ever have to be present when
something like doesn't go perfectly and she has to work through something.
She's like, I used to have to kind of basically compartmentalize so much that I forget a lot of things about my childhood, and sometimes I forget like schedule things, or my memory can be a little spotty. And he's like, oh no, what would I do if that
so
happened?
Odd. I was like, really? Like, you're this concerned over like that she might forget about a scheduling thing? Like, put it in her calendar, bro. And she even says, I don't think it's something that you notice. Like, it's a thing that I feel.
Yeah. Men love being like, I'm the savior of this broken, beautiful woman, but they hate actually having to do anything.
Right. He's like, I really want you to have worked on that, but I really want me to be the perfect person who will save you from it.
Yeah, just by being me.
Yeah.
Just by being here. So their relationship gets a little complicated after this. she does kind of suggest to Alex that they only focus on each other at one point, and he agrees, but then she doesn't cut things off with Mason. And I was like, what's going on?
Okay. I could not tell how much they chopped up this timeline because
Right.
there were some dates that were shown directly after each other that like made it seem like both Mason and Madison, and maybe this is how it happened, but it did make me a little bit suspicious. Like it made it seem like both Mason and Madison kept telling their other partners that they're going to like focus on them and then not following through.
The reason that I believed that this is how it went is because she does go into her date with Mason and sort of gently is like, Meg really likes you. And like,
That's true.
I've realized that I'm kind of fine with that. So maybe that's just kind of where this is going. And he's like, no, I really like you. I don't want to give up on this. And she's like, okay. And then they just continue. It's almost like she did kind of like half-heartedly try to
break up with him.
break it off, but then he didn't want to. And she's like, okay, I guess never mind.
Yeah.
And then he comes back in the next date and is like, I've realized that my gut is with you. I'm committed to you. And she cringes and is like, I didn't mean to like give you an ultimatum or pressure you to do that. But I guess I love hearing that. She doesn't reciprocate, but she's like, great, thank you. And then they talk about how much they love cream pies. One thing we haven't discussed is that when Madison kind of brings up sex with Alex, he's sort of like, nope.
Oh, I
not
found
yet.
this very weird.
And then with Mason, it's very sexual. Like they talk a lot about.
In that regard, I was like, Madison and Mason are much better suited for each other than Madison and Alex. I feel like Madison zoned in on this like depth of connection she felt with Alex from the beginning and really like didn't want to let that go.
Yeah.
And also she says like she keeps seeing Meg come back from dates elated. And so she starts to feel like Mason is like gassing us both up. And she even says like, I'm not mad at Meg about it. It doesn't bother me, but it makes me less attracted to Mason.
Right. That's kind of turning her off at a certain point. And like, that's similar to the way I feel about the guys who have these love triangles where one of them is for sex and one of them is for depth. I was like, it sort of feels like she's like frustrated that Alex won't go there with her. So she's going right into the chats with Mason. It's just like, so cream pies. I like them.
Look, that sexual energy has to go somewhere, Claire.
Yeah. No, she's definitely like going off of Mason a little bit, and he is reacting by trying to hold on to her. I do kind of like, I kind of wondered why she didn't take Mason more seriously. And I think that Meg is probably a big part of it. I love their couple name would be Madison, which I love. Team Madison.
You know what? That's pretty good.
And so this is all kind of like building where Madison has been gently trying to pull away from Mason. He's locking his like claws around her because he can feel her pulling away. Alex is lightly pulling away from Madison and she's like locking her claws in like, no,
it's so
don't
interesting
go anywhere.
Because you see Mason and Madison both react in the same way of like, someone is pulling away from me. That means they're more valuable.
Right.
Like it's such a human dating instinct where you're like, wait, I wasn't sure, but now that might go away, like I want them more.
It's like a gentler version of what happened with Leo.
Yeah.
In the last season in DC. When you think someone is leaving, you suddenly fight very hard for them to stay. And then it's like, oh no, I haven't actually decided yet. And now I've made a lot of like promises to the person who wanted to leave. And I still kind of maybe want to pick the other person.
And this really ends up screwing Mason.
Yeah, it usually does. Like this is not a good way to handle things. Although I understand that you want to have as many choices as possible. So on her next date with Alex, Madison tells him about this conversation. And she's like, it made me realize that I saw this other guy as a friend because he's like, I'm committed to you. I wasn't feeling the right way in response to that. So I don't think he's the one. I'm sure that it's you. And they're like, okay, let's be boyfriend, girlfriend. And Meg hears about this back in the quarters and immediately is like, that means that if Mason chooses me, I will never know if I was his first choice. So it's already looking bad. But then Mason seems like kind of clueless about who Alex is dating. So in the men's quarters, it hasn't gotten weird yet.
Yeah, the men are being like very intentional about not saying anything to each other.
So
basically until like the end.
Yeah. So Madison goes into her next date with Mason, and he like presents her with a slice of cream pie, like referencing one of their sex chats. And she's like, yeah, it's over. Brutal.
I do appreciate that Madison really like sticks to her guns once
Finally,
she makes a decision.
I do think she tried to break up with him before, and
she
failed.
did, and she tried to do it subtly, and she's like, that's not working.
Yeah. She did. She wanted him to kind of do it for her. She was like, I'll float it, and he'll be like, yeah, Meg is the one for me, but that's not what happened. So he's like, well, I didn't mean it when I said I was committed to you, and I think I came on too strong. I don't know why I said that. I regretted it right away. And she's like, well, you did say that though, and now you're like taking it back, and I don't know. I could tell that you were saying these things to both of us, and that was kind of a problem for me. And she admits to him that she did talk to Meg already. And she's like, by trying to keep two good things going at once, you might have lost both of them. I was like, Madison, I don't know if you're the person to lecture him on this. Because you made up your mind like one day before him. But Madison and Alex end up talking about this, and it doesn't go well.
This was so weird. Alex, this is another time Alex annoyed me.
Rose before hose, baby.
Yes. Alex goes out of his way to inject empathy for Mason and seems to have almost none for Madison.
Yeah, he's defending Mason to her.
Yeah. And she's like, I really don't need that right now. Like, I wanted some empathy for me from you.
She's like, he told me he was committed and then he took it back. How would you feel if I did that to you? And he's like, I guess. But like, I just see both sides. And like, he's valid. You're also valid. She's like, I was hurt by him and you're telling me that he was valid. So that's not helpful. And Alex is like, well, I'm sorry he made you feel that way.
Ugh.
I will say this. I'm such an Alex. I am always taking other people's sides when Greg is upset.
You know what? I do it sometimes too to Adam. So maybe I just am like, I think it wouldn't have bothered me if he hadn't also been so unempathetic to Madison leading up to this. Like, it started to feel to me like, oh, he just like can't ever be in it with her.
Right.
And that is really concerning to me. It's not that I even think that Mason did something so horrible. It's like, because I don't actually. But it concerns me, like, if Madison is trying to be with Alex, that he can't ever seem to like be on her side. He's always like, how will
is off?
Yeah. He's
Like,
always like, how will what you're doing affect me or my bros badly?
Yeah, I think that we saw a little bit with like Lauren and Dave, a different approach to this, where she did stick up for Molly when he was talking shit about her, but she wasn't like really insistent about it. She also didn't belabor
the point.
Right.
Like, he won't.
She was like, well, she was upset about it, and like I think that she was just doing her, her best with the situation.
Alex won't let it go. She even says, this is exactly what I need from you. And he like won't give it to her. And then he says, sorry, he made you feel that way, which is just, everyone knows that means you're not sorry.
Right. I also think it's so funny that his concern about her is that she's avoidant. And she's describing Mason like pulling this sort of like avoidant type move on her of like the minute that he feels like he's going to get hurt, he like withdraws what he like had offered to her and is like, I didn't mean that. That wasn't real. Never mind. And he's like, he's valid in that. That's valid. If you did that to me, then
I wouldn't fundamentally distrust you.
Yeah. So it does seem like he's like more skeptical of Madison in this moment than supportive, which is not the right balance to strike. But hey, he has clearly already decided deep down in his soul that she is
Not the right one for
the
him.
right one
Yeah.
for him.
And so at the end of this batch of episodes, he's basically like, I have too many concerns about you
Yeah.
to get engaged to you. So,
Oh my gosh, though, it was so funny in the middle of this conversation. He's like, anyway, do you like decorating for Christmas?
okay, what's more avoidant than like wildly switching the subject when you're uncomfortable? Like, Alex, you think you're some fucking enlightened, like, people pleaser.
I think Madison is more resourced than Alex.
I certainly agree.
She has all the resources.
Alex
And
really
of course,
lost
it's
me.
like whenever anyone on the show can't figure out what to talk about, they're just like, so holiday decorations?
No one loves Christmas decor more than the cast of Love is Blind, Minnesota.
All they know
Minneapolis.
is being raised Catholic, dating guys with the same name as their dads, and decorating for the holidays.
That's just, it's not been my experience of Minneapolis as a person who's like very Jewish family lives there. But
I'm surprised by how much more this feels like my experience than the Chicago season.
Yeah.
And it's probably because Chicago is like a specific thing. Like it's a big city that is sort of seen as like the Midwestern city that is like the coastal cities. And like Minneapolis is more of like a South Bend sort of vibe. And it's like, yeah, a lot of Catholic parishes and kids go into those Catholic schools and then they marry their high school sweethearts and they have Catholic babies. That's not the totality of the story, but it's clearly they cast heavily from the same kind of community that I came from.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So ultimately, Meg also ends up rejecting Mason after learning about the promises that he had made to Madison. I honestly respected the hell out of Meg for making this call. Like, although I actually really wanted to follow one of these couples,
I want to get something out of this.
I did like appreciate that she was sort of like, look, I don't know that this is something I can get over, and I just can't move forward here right now. And she even goes out of her way to say, I don't think you're a bad person. I don't think you did anything so wrong. This is just like a block for me.
Yeah. I think that was probably the right decision. I think that it's rare for a couple to work out when they have to get over that question.
Especially on this show. Like, and I do think, from what we see later, there are hints that perhaps they try to date in the real world, and there's obviously a lot less pressure in that versus
and I think it can also give you an element of like, well, so he didn't just want to get engaged on the show and I was the last one left. Like, if he sought me out, if he wanted to,
that's a good point.
That's like kind of a gesture that shows that he's invested in me specifically.
Yeah.
Like he could have left the show and pursued Madison, or he could have given up on it because he wasn't going to get screen time. So I think that's honestly the more seasons of this I watch, I think that's the move. So great job, Meg.
Good job, Meg.
Great job, Alex, because Madison deserves more support from whoever.
Yeah, honestly, Alex, thank you for bowing out.
Yeah. Bad season for Madison, but we know so much about the four of them now. I wish that I had a full screen time breakdown because I think that they get like 50% of the screen time.
I can sense that people will be annoyed by this because people were annoyed by the Brittany and Leo thing.
Right,
and like these people collectively get so much more time.
I do think they'll show up again.
They will absolutely
capacity.
show up in some capacity, but obviously we won't be following them in the same way that we follow.
We're going to be following basically a group of strangers. I feel like I barely know anything about most of the couples that actually get engaged.
However,
so let's talk about one of those couples.
I do know enough about Sara and Ben to know that I hate Ben.
Often it takes so little, So Sarah's
one conversation about politics and
that'll do it. Sara is 29. She's an oncology nurse. Ben is 28. He's a developer. His major trauma is his parents' divorce. At one point, he's like, I got my faith back in marriage when my parents remarried, but I couldn't tell if he meant to each other or to other people.
Who can say?
I don't know.
We don't clarify.
Unfortunately for me, I found him very cute. And it's
No,
hard to like track people in the maelstrom of like white dudes. So I
yeah.
kept having to like
You're like,
remind
no, that
myself
one's the one
he
that kind of
sucks.
sucks.
Right. I was
Yeah,
like, oh, a
and
cute
also
boy. And then I was
when
like, no,
I first watched the screeners, I wasn't aware of like any of the rumors. So
yeah.
until the politics stuff comes out, I'm like, oh, I like Ben and he's cute and
Yeah.
Sarah seems great. So I
You
was
had
like,
told me about
oh,
the politics stuff ahead of time.
oh, did I? I'm so
I
sorry.
knew.
I think I was probably
knew.
just like absolutely enraged once I
Fair.
got there. Um, but yeah, Ben is cute. I mean, look, he's cute and he's a former baseball player. It doesn't surprise me that he's a fuckboy. We don't know
That he is allegedly
a fuckboy.
But so they zone in on each other. We don't see them dating other people past like the first episode.
Right. Although we do learn because of some of the conversations we see between Madison and Alex that like it seems like Alex was also dating Meg and Sara.
A lot of them date each other that we don't see. So we always have to remember that two people who are shown as like having this sort of golden couple
They probably have a bunch of other relationships.
They might have had a bunch of other relationships. Which again is like, I mean, why you would often cut something like the love square, because you could have turned any other love triangle into a screen, into a part of an episode. Anyway, so we see them kind of focusing on each other. And then a wrench is thrown into their relationship when they start talking about politics.
They had previously talked about the fact that Ben grew up very religious and has, undergone some shifts in the way that he like thinks about his faith. And they talk
sure
about
he grew up Catholic from what he said.
That sounds right. I didn't clock that, but I believe you. What I clocked is that Sara pretty early brings up the fact that her sister, who is her best friend, is gay. And she's very much like, I've had experiences where like the church can be very shitty to queer people, essentially. Like, how do you feel about that? And he gives an answer that indicates like a discomfort with queerness, but also that he has shifted his feelings on like, or like he has moved away from perhaps how he was raised in the church thinking about it.
She's like, would you be okay to be around my sister? And he's like, yes, I have no problem with people like that. And some of my friends are that way. I support that community. Like, those are the kind of things he's saying.
Yeah,
where
and
he
I was
clearly
like,
feels a little discomfort. Like, they're over there. They're that kind of person. I'm fine with them. Like, I know that they're not hurting anyone and it's fine.
They're over there.
But they're over there.
Community over there is A-okay with me. So it's the sort of thing where I was like, a little orange flag, but like he is 27. Is this something he's still learning how to
that
talk
would have been
about? Like that would have been a really red flag for me. But Sara is sort of like, okay, I'm going to give this another chance. Like his heart seems to be in the right place.
Yeah, she's sort of like, okay, he's saying he'll be fine with my sister, and I have dated guys who did not react that well, and that can definitely set your baseline.
I also think that something that put her at ease about that is that their next date, he comes in and immediately brings it up and is like, look, I'm not super used to like talking about this stuff, but I don't ever want you to think that you can't ask me about it. I don't ever want you to think that like essentially I would be prejudiced toward your sister or like queer people. Not in those words, but like I think the fact that he brings it up again sort of settles her.
Yeah.
But they don't talk about other politically adjacent issues until
later. And then she finally kind of brings it up. She's like, I'm, interested in politics. I wasn't always, but when Trump took office and George Floyd was killed, that sparked my interest in politics because I could see that things were happening that were not right. And he's like, I have never thought about Black Lives Matter.
I don't really know about
okay, but
that.
like George Floyd literally was murdered here in Minneapolis. How have you not thought about it at all? And he's like, he's basically like, that doesn't affect me. I just stay out of it.
This would have been like automatic no. we're breaking up territory for me. And you can see
Yeah.
Sara struggling with it because she's like down the road with him at this point.
Yeah.
It comes up late. And he also says that he did not vote in the 2020 election. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh,
He's like, if I don't know, it's not going to do much.
Ben.
Like, oh, so you just like ignore it because it's not going to affect you if you don't think about it.
I did appreciate that Sara is like, I don't like that. That's a bad answer.
Those are not answers that I like.
I was like, same, Sara. Same. Run.
But she clearly just like wants him to start giving the right answer.
Yeah.
And like no one's like has all the right beliefs, right? I used to have arguments like this with Greg. Not like this, not about Black Lives Matter. But like, I would be like, I think that the Washington Redskins should change their name. And he would be like, no one cares that much. They've had that name forever. It's not a big deal. We would argue about it. I would get really mad that he wasn't giving me the answers I wanted. Eventually, he like changed his mind, but it was not immediate. And then on the other hand, I was very like skeptical of like Bernie Sanders, for example. And we used to argue about it. And eventually I changed my mind. There can be movement on these things. But the fact that he's just like, I don't have to think about this because it doesn't affect me. And so I stay out of it would be really hard for me to swallow.
And she even says, like, at one point she has a conversation about this with Virginia. And Virginia is like, okay, like, he hasn't educated himself. Can he like learn? And she says, yeah, but should I be taking on like teaching fundamental values? And she says to the camera, like, those things can't be taught. Mm-hmm. And I do think it's like what you're describing. Unless they can, because I will try. But I think what you're describing, like with Greg is, and I've had those kind of like disagreements and discussions amongst like my family where it's like, we are coming at these things perhaps from different perspectives, but our fundamental values are in line with each other. Maybe we disagree with the way to get there or who's the most effective messenger. Like, and I think that can be like very healthy dialogue, and people are allowed to have disagreements and change and shift, right?
Right.
That is not the case when it comes to like having either fundamentally opposed values or just a complete disinterest in the suffering of other people.
Right. And like, imagine going into 2025 married to someone who thinks none of that affects him and it doesn't really matter.
Also, I was like, okay, we're in an election year right now. This is obviously pre-election. I was like, how did this man vote? Did he vote at all? Like, I don't have a lot of faith. I don't think he cared.
Yeah. Listen, in my opinion, like the best outcome that's likely to me is that he didn't vote.
Right. You're like, hopefully, hopefully he didn't vote.
So they end up getting back into the pods on their next date, and he kind of expresses that he wants her to be willing to get married even if they aren't always on the same page. Like, he's like, you expect me to have all the same beliefs. That's not really how this works. And she's like, sure, I love to learn about other viewpoints, but some things are non-negotiable, like human rights and equality. And he's like, oh no, but I agree. I just show it through my actions. And I'm like, you know what an action is? Showing up to a Black Lives Matter protest. You know what
like
isn't
voting.
An action? Never thinking about it or doing anything. That's not an action. What actions are you talking about? That's such like a white person like excuse for not doing anything, is to be like, I'm going to show up through actions instead of words, but not doing any actions. And then being like, but I don't have to say the words because of the actions I'm not doing.
He seems to be saying like, in the future, you'll see that I'll do actions. What are they? Who knows? But they'll be actions.
Yeah.
And you just know that if this man was ever going to do any actions, it would be at the behest of his partner who is like teaching him what to do.
Right.
I mean, it's so obvious to me that these two are not going to work out. And we haven't even gotten to the part where he's going to be confronted for like making a girl sob on TikTok. So it's not, I mean, I really hope she runs at some point.
Was it Dave and Molly who were talking about how crazy it is that people filter through politics in their dating apps?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm like, this is why. Like, you get down the road with someone, you think that you have shared values and you care about them, and then you find out that they aren't going to even go to the voting booth to protect the fundamental rights of yourself and people you care about.
Right.
And that is a huge fucking problem. Like, I want to be married to someone who is doing whatever they can.
I don't have to worry about that.
So that I don't have to live in a dystopia.
It's just like simply not an argument I want to have in like the safety of my home.
Yeah.
With an intimate partner. Like that is just not a negotiable for me. When I was dating, like honestly, that was something I brought up on every first date. I always filtered only for like liberal or very liberal on apps. So and even so, I would always make a joke or something on a first date because
you don't want to wait. You don't want to get
to
emotionally involved in someone who doesn't care about your humanity or the humanity of other people who are not at the top of like the white patriarchal social hierarchy. Like you don't want to get your heart invested in that person thinking that it doesn't matter or you can fix them because it does matter and you probably can't fix them.
But Sarah is like, Daddy, maybe I can.
Yeah. She's like, I really am not sure about this. And he's like, I will grow into being against racism. You won't even have to teach me. I will just grow into being good about this. Will you marry me? And she's like, yes. She even calls him her twin flame. I was like,
I mean, I'm not even, to be honest, I'm not even that worried about her because I do think she's going to like reach her.
I know. I just wish she had saved herself the mess and
but I do hope that she like is vindicated over the course of the season and that everyone like stands behind her.
We'll see. Next, a couple that I keep forgetting about,
except that they are the cliffhanger, so we have to talk about them.
We definitely have to talk about them.
Taylor and Danielle, they mostly bond over Christmas. Taylor is 32. She's a colonoscopy nurse. We have 3 nurses. And Daniel, a 30-year-old sales account executive who loves making Christmas cards.
He is like Mr. Christmas. They find these people that I thought only existed in Hallmark movies who, you know, it's Christmas time and they meet someone and they're both like, you love Christmas, I love Christmas. And you're like, what do they do the rest of the year? Apparently, they just talk about how at Christmas it's going to be so nice. It's July. What are we going to do when it's Christmas? It's February. What are we going to do when it's Christmas?
You know what?
Oh, God.
Poor Taylor is absolutely adorable, but like loses her voice for like a whole chunk of time in the middle of dating, which is really rough when all you're doing is talking all day.
No, it seems like having like a really bad like cystic breakout right before a singles mixer. It's like that's all people are getting and the voice becomes really important. But Daniel is undeterred. He really sees something in her. He's locked in. A thing about Daniel that is also comes up a few times is that he's 5'8" and has a bit of a complex about it. I
thought it was so interesting that he's like, you know, if a woman just doesn't want me, she wants someone taller, then that's fine. That's just not my person. And I'm like, okay, so good, I guess, to date in a setting where you won't know until you're already engaged if she's absolutely not going to be attracted to you. Like, personally, I do think there's like a fucked up bias, obviously, against men who are on the shorter side. That like does suck.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, like, I would just want to filter people out.
Yeah.
Who are like, I would never date someone who's 5'8". It's like, okay, don't deal with those people then.
Yeah. I that is kind of the catch-22 of Love is Blind, is that the whole point is that it's supposed to take out these superficial factors. But if you often are rejected for superficial reasons, then going on the show kind of sets you up, to be rejected by someone who you thought really cared about you. And I think that is, again, like, it does seem like they keep gravitating to like straight-sized people who are thin, who are more conventionally attractive or generic looking. And And I can understand why people wouldn't want to put themselves in the position of having like someone that said they loved them and wanted to marry them suddenly is like, ew, you're 5'8", never
Yeah,
mind.
it sounds really traumatizing.
And I know a lot of men who are 5'8" and under who are happily married to women who are attracted to them. So, you know, go for it. They're out there.
Yeah.
So as we discussed, Daniel's big thing is Christmas. And specifically, he makes an over-the-top solo Christmas card every year. And he tells Taylor about this, and she's like, I love that. And he's like, I realized the best thing I could possibly do is bring this into my marriage and make a Christmas card with my family every year. And I was like, is it the best thing you could possibly do? It seems fine. Let's not overstate the case. He really is just like, what a gift, what a boon to the world. If I were to dedicate my life to making over-the-top Christmas cards with my family.
That is Daniel's whole personality. At least that's all I really took away from it.
No. Well, also there's the fact that he is constantly talking about finding the mother of his children.
Oh my God. How could I forget? Because that is the kind of phrase that makes me like recoil viscerally. But for Taylor, she loves it. She's like, it's so sweet.
I
how
know,
he
so
keeps
endearing.
talking about the mother of his children.
She writes it down in her notes in quotes. She's like, mother of my children. Yes. And I think, you know, I think we find that kind of dehumanizing. It's like, I'm looking for the womb that will bring forth my progeny. Like, she is the vessel that I'm searching for.
Of my children.
Right.
Not ours. Not our children. Well, my children.
They will become ours when he finds out who she is. But for now, she's just the mother of his children. And I think that there is also, like, if you have been really raised to and attached to the idea of being a mother, I can see how that might feel like being, like, he'll recognize that I am this thing. Then I will be recognized and given, like, the role that I want to embody. I don't love it. I don't love it, but I see why, if you're out in the dating trenches and men are having situationships with you and stuff, you're like, he's going to like anoint me the mother of his children.
Yeah, he is at least in words looking for someone to like build a family with. Yeah, right. I understand why.
But yeah, honestly, my reaction was barf.
I was like,
and if Greg had said that, we would not have any children together.
Yeah, you'd be like, nope, bye. I'm done here.
They exchange gifts at one point, and he gives her his Christmas stocking, and he's like, hopefully we can get you a Christmas stocking with a T for Taylor on it. And she's like, I already have a Christmas stocking with the T.
Same one. I'm like, how many varieties really are there? But okay, whatever. It's, you know, they're both very like tickled, and they keep talking about how many crazy little coincidences there are.
Like, mostly that they love Christmas. She's like, isn't it crazy how much we both love Christmas? Even without the Christmas stuff, we were really meant for each other, because once we both wrote each other letters on the same date, and we both gave each other Christmas themed gifts. I think her dad's name is Daniel. Like, she's one of the yeah. If I met a Steve, I would not feel that we were meant to be.
I know, that's the thing. I did once date a Peter briefly, and it was not a positive for me. I was like, this is a real negative.
Yeah, I would never want to date someone with the same name as my dad. It's just too confusing. But, you know, they have all these like coincidences and connections that to me seem pretty much just like we're doing similar things because we're in the same experience and we have the same broad cultural interests that are like really common. Like,
yeah, it's not that crazy to like Christmas and Taco Bell.
Yeah. But they do get engaged. And they have a reveal that seems to go fine.
Yeah, and it's sort of extended. They're like a little nervous and shaky, but cute, and they're having champagne.
She's like, he's my type. Like, he's really happy with how beautiful she is. They're having a good time.
And then 24 hours later,
we see our first ray of sunlight through the blinds of the women's hotel.
And you're like, oh my God, they are allowed to leave the pods to sleep in a hotel at night. That's so generous.
So I guess it's between the reveals and leaving for their honeymoons. Taylor is in the women's hotel in her room, and she tells the camera through like tears that she doesn't think it's the first time Daniel has seen her. She believes
Dun,
that he
dun, dun.
briefly followed and then unfollowed her on Instagram just within the last couple of months before
Basically,
filming.
like, it sounds like, when they would have been going through the casting process.
Right. And she wonders if he targeted her in the pods because he had seen her Instagram. She's like, I have very specific things in my profiles. Things like nursing, Taco Bell, faith and family, Christmas. Who else likes these things, embodies these things? They're very rare and specific. And now he knows them about me. No, but I mean, I understand why she was upset, but that was a really funny list of very popular and generic things.
I agree. I understand why she was like a little freaked out.
Absolutely.
Because I think she's processing like, wait, did he like target me in this very direct way versus us organically connecting?
Right.
And that
Like
feels
he sought out
creepy.
a girl that he thought was hot or whatever
Right.
from. And maybe he changed things that he talked about so that
Right.
to
Did he
appeal to
tailor his
me.
answers because he knew the kind of person that I was from what he had seen on my Instagram?
Were his answers tailored to Taylor, as it were?
Dun, dun, dun.
It's really not a good show to be like a Taylor, like a blonde Taylor or blonde. I guess because Taylor last season had a good turn, but then the Taylor before that didn't.
There's a lot of Taylors.
There's so many Taylors. I'm getting confused. But I also, like, I can see why she was probably doing the same thing that I started doing, which was going back through all these weirdly freighted moments in the pods.
Yes.
When he says stuff that reads differently if he knew what she looked like, was kind of like specifically like looking at her, targeting her. She like at one point she's opening up about how she's worried that her dad, who is very sick with cancer, will get sicker and she'll have to leave the pods. And he's like, don't worry, I would find you. And she's touched and she's like, I've been waiting for you to find me. And then it gets weirder. She's like, I've had problems in the past dating with guys not wanting to post me on Instagram. Would you post me? And he's like, of course. And then they discuss whether he's ever followed her. Because, of course, they live in the same city and people call it like a small town, big city.
And this is what people keep saying who are posting these like reaction tea videos on Instagram. They're like, we all just kind of know each other. It's not weird to have like dated several of these people.
Right. And she's like, did you ever follow me? And he categorically denies this and says he has a photographic memory for Instagram and would remember her face and handle. And he doesn't. So he knows that he didn't. Which is like a long way to go to be like, I definitely never followed you if it's not true. So the batch of episodes actually ends with Taylor confronting Daniel, who seems very upbeat and doesn't seem to think that anything is wrong when the conversation starts. And then she confronts him.
I'm going to say that he gets a little sketchy when she confronts him.
He's like, I do not follow you. And she's like, no, I know, but I think that you followed me and then unfollowed me. And he says, I don't know why I would have followed you, then unfollowed you. Okay,
these are just
but
things
did
that,
you?
Yeah, these are just things that like a person says when they are trying to like skirt around the truth a little
so that
bit.
later they can be like, I never said specifically that I didn't do that.
He's like, I said, I do not follow you.
I said, I don't know why I would have done that. And I don't know why I did that. What was I doing?
She brings up that she remembers this like picture from his Instagram of him like in front of a Christmas tree holding
up a drink. And he's like, no, it wasn't like that. It was in front of a fireplace and it was my Christmas photo, but I wasn't holding a drink. I did actually look at his Instagram.
Me too.
I wonder if he deleted any pictures.
Okay, but
I
was
saw
wondering...
one that looked similar to what like that she might have been describing, where he's holding a book by the fireplace.
There is one where he is in a bathtub. There's a tiny Christmas tree behind him and he's holding a glass of wine. So like she could have easily seen like combined a couple of these. There's also one where he is in front of a fireplace and there's two little like pseudo Christmas trees on the like hearth.
Also, like I think it's totally natural to look at it and catch a vibe and then backfill in
like
slightly wrong
tree.
details.
Right. You're like, this is a Christmas photo and he's holding something.
Right. It's
And if
clear
they're like,
that she saw his photos because what she is describing
it's
is
so similar
so
to
similar
what he
to
has.
what
Like,
he
why
has
would she
posted.
remember that?
And people forget those kind of details and retcon them slightly incorrectly all the time. That's how human memory works. So he's being like, I don't have a picture where I'm holding a drink. So you're definitely
First of
thinking
all,
of someone
buddy.
else. Like, come on. Well, I guess
Also,
it
like,
does
you
seem like people
do.
are really into Christmas decorating in Minneapolis. However, he did it. I'm convinced.
I suspect that he probably did follow her. And like, maybe, I don't know, maybe he didn't like super intentionally target her. I don't know.
Right.
But his vibes are not convincing me that he never followed her.
Right. I will say like it's weird. Like it's all sort of weird because under normal circumstances I would be like, who cares?
Who
He
cares?
saw her on
Yeah.
Instagram. Now they're dating. Like, is that bad? Like that
Right, he thought she was attractive and she's attracted to him and they had this connection.
Right.
I think what freaks her out is the idea that he would have like been dishonest in targeting her. And that feels sort of like weird and stalkery.
Exactly. And I think that being dishonest about it is really like if she had been like, have you ever followed me and said her handle? And he was like, I don't remember handles.
Yeah.
Or even better, I think I actually did follow you, but then I unfollowed you when I was like purging my list or whatever. Or like I don't know. Like I just followed you and then I was like, I should have just unfollow. Because I'm about to like go on a show and like meet women. I shouldn't be like following women. I don't know. Just like admit what happened. And he did neither of those things. He was like, I would definitely remember. I didn't do it. And that kind of dishonesty just always makes it seem like you are hiding something.
Yeah.
It's a very weird crime that is so specific to Love is Blind.
I know, like who would give one fuck in any other situation?
Even another dating show would be totally fine, but they're so like attached to this. Like I came on to have the Love is Blind experience where love is blind and I do fall in love even though they've never seen me and they truly do love me for my heart, but then they're also wildly attracted to my body and we make Vanessa happy by mothering and fathering several children together. Yeah.
So that is where we end. Yep. And I did go through both the teaser as well as the overall season trailer to search for clues. And there were a handful of things that I gleaned. I'm sure other people noticed these too. First, it definitely seems like Taylor and Daniel stay together because we see them in the teasers on vacation. I also saw in both the teaser and trailer that Meg and Mason seem to arrive at a pod squad hang together and she's sort of grasping his like shirt sleeve. So it really seems like they have dated in some capacity after leaving the pods. We see, of course, Sara confronting Ben about TikTok rumors. And we hear that a woman allegedly went into the experience with a boyfriend and a couple has like moved into an apartment building where someone's ex lives. And I was really trying to deduce who this was about. And my best guess is that it is Lauren. Because we see her telling Dave, like, I've trying to be so honest about everything. And we hear Dave's voice in a voiceover that seems to be about this. Okay. So that's my best guess.
Interesting.
We also see that Monica and Joey's like friends and family are both like, oh, the other person is not your type.
Which is interesting because they seem so excited to see each other. She's like, I love his long hair. It's beautiful. Like, this is so, like, you're so handsome.
I couldn't tell if this was just like, let's inject some
right. Well, because
drama
that is also,
into this. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes people just date against type and that's fine.
Exactly. We also see Devin and Virginia start to get into it because she wants a prenup. And he's like, why do you need this? We definitely confirm that Joey and Monica and Virginia and Devin make it to the altar because we see clips of them. And we also see that Dave and Molly and Devin and Brittany are going to meet at a pod squad mixer and like chat. We don't see Alex and Madison sitting down together, but we do see Madison reacting to him coming in. So I assume we'll get one of those meetings as well. We also see Madison saying to someone whose hair looks like Lauren's that a man is, quote, a huge liar. I couldn't tell who this was about.
I guess, yeah, the edit kind of made me assume it was about Mason because it's sort of right after Mason.
But so
comes
often
in.
that is a complete misdirect, and it's
True.
usually about someone else. So I was like, this also could be like about Dave or Alex. And then finally, a blonde woman, we only see her hair. I think from the hair it is Sara, not Taylor, can be seen leaving the wedding venue, like getting into a car by herself. And there is a voiceover piped over, so it's unclear whether this is definitely from the same clip, but her voice is saying, get me out of here. So I was like, do Sara and Ben make it to the altar and then break up at the altar? These are my best guesses.
Oh boy. I can't wait.
Yeah, we'll see what I got right.
And when I rewatched the episode, I was like, oh, they're using all of what Taylor says at the end of the drop.
Over the whole trailer.
Over the whole, intro trailer. And I'm like, oh, that isn't from the weddings. Like, they're making it seem. Where she's like, does he look familiar? Because I've been listening to his voice. Why does he look familiar? Like, and they're doing like horror movie music.
Oh yeah, and we know that they can place things
wherever they want,
place things completely out of context. So that's why I found it fun to compare the two teasers to each other, because you can like piece some things together. So now we do something over on our Love is Blind rich text recaps that we wanted to bring over to Love to See It. And that is our friends to enemies scale. We like to rate all of the major cast members and decide whether they are our enemy, our frenemy, or our friend. And before we do it, I want to just like make a very clear disclaimer that this is tongue in cheek. We do not know these people. People slide up and down the enemy to frenemy to friend scale throughout the season. And these are strangers to us. They are people on television. So we are basing it off of what we see here, and it is just not that serious.
Yeah. Even if someone is my mortal enemy on this scale, I would still never slide into their DMs with a death threat, because
exactly. We don't harass people.
It's not about that. So this is how we felt about these people
after these 6 episodes.
After watching these edited depictions of their behavior. Let's start with our enemies.
Ben and Dave.
Are,
I think, my clearest enemies.
Number 1 enemies. I was left feeling quite negatively toward both of them. I think that for me, next on the list is probably Alex. I think Alex is my at the border of enemy and frenemy.
My enemy.
Yeah.
Same. He started off as my friend, and then by the end of the 6 episodes, I was like, maybe he's my enemy.
Yeah. Same.
I think Devin might also, honestly, at this point, be a little bit my frenemy, just because of how he reacted to Brittany talking about the fact that she had dated women.
Same. Yeah.
I really didn't like that.
See, you got to stay on your toes. You can slide down into our frenemies section if you put a foot wrong, and we'll put it in our rating at the end.
Exactly.
I think for a lot of the people, I still feel that I know so little about them that they are just generic friends, acquaintances,
or like strangers.
Really.
They're acquaintances. Yeah. This early, you can have an acquaintance. Yeah. Once we get to know them more, I guess Molly is somewhere between a frenemy or an acquaintance and a frenemy to me, purely because of the libertarianism. I'm so sorry, Molly. You seem lovely in so many ways,
man.
And maybe we would just get a great drink together. I gotta see more.
This is what she was afraid of. You're gonna filter her out because of her political views.
Yes,
not like taxes.
As Gabby would say, there is a double standard. And it's just.
I think currently Daniel is my frenemy, because of the mother of my children thing and the weird Instagram thing. Yeah, that could go enemy real fast.
It could go enemy, or he could be vindicated. We don't know. But he's solidly in the frenemy territory right now.
Yeah. I think that we have this group of people who are just sort of those acquaintance friends for me, like Taylor, Joey and Monica, who seem nice, but I barely know them.
They're acquaintances.
Virginia, does Devin even really know her? I know a lot of things about her that I really like, but it's not intimate.
So true. But I admire Virginia. So she's really an acquaintance that I deeply admire.
Yeah.
And I think her work is so important.
I'm gonna follow her on social media and like her posts. That kind of relationship. Lauren to me is an interesting one because I like her. I feel drawn to her. But like
she's like a budding friend that I'm like a little worried about.
yeah, I'm kind of like make better choices.
Yeah, like I want to shake you, girl.
Yeah. And while we're on the topic, Sarah, a friend
Sarah.
that I'm like make better choices.
Sarah, I feel like honestly, I feel close to Sarah, but I'm like very concerned about her. I need to befriend Sarah so that I can tell her to run and she'll like actually listen to me.
If I were Sarah's friend, I would probably be like, I don't know. I think
I really want you to be happy, but like this might not be your person.
Yeah.
That's I think the conversation we would be having. I feel like Madison is my friend.
I've liked Madison so far. I really have.
I also think Mason is my friend, despite the fact that he's flailing.
Yeah. I really liked both of them. I think that's why I was kind of pulling for a Madison renaissance.
I see it. I get it.
But I think that she's not gonna he's really poisoned the well with that little I'm committed to you flub, which is a shame. They're both my friends right now. Brittany is my friend. I want to borrow
Brittany's
her outfits.
Definitely my friend. And Meg. I think Meg is my friend, but I'm like, I have an eye on, I'm gonna be like, Meg, I love your like passion for rabbit holes. Let's like direct that research down a non-Joe Rogan pathway,
No, exactly. She's your friend that you're like, it's actually really important that we keep talking because who's going to be talking to her if I stop?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Joe Rogan.
Rogan and his many
Meg
guests.
Meg is my friend right now.
And
I think that's everyone.
Yeah, I think that's everyone. We have a lot of friends we're worried about and some acquaintances and a good amount of enemies. So yeah.
A couple enemies who, shocker, are men.
Honestly, I feel like we normally have more friends who are just friends at this point in the season.
We're tepid about a lot of people, and maybe look, it's always interesting to track how things change over the season.
I feel like the Madison love square really sucked up so much of the time and essence of this season that it made it hard to really get close to a lot of the other more relevant players. And so even though like there's more people, we know them less well.
Yeah. So we also like to do a should they get married or date in real life rating from 0 to 10. Sara and Ben, should they get married? I'm giving it a 0.
Wow. I'm going to give it a 1.
Wow. No, I I need her to run away from
What
him.
if he like really listen.
Then I'll reevaluate. Claire.
Right, but I'm rating based on my thoughts on the odds of
that's
this
really
happening.
generous. That's really generous of you.
But it's possible that all of the rumors are completely fabricated.
It is.
It's possible that he's fully reformed and nothing he did was really so bad and like he's ready to settle down. It's also possible that he is going to feel a fire under his ass and he's going to be like, I've been sitting by and I need to get involved really deeply in anti-racist activism.
I pray that is true. I just don't think Sara is going to be the one for him.
I'm going to give this a 1 out of 10 right now.
Okay. I love that. I respect that. I think it's very generous. Monica and Joey, I feel like they're going to be my highest rating just because they seem the most excited about each other and we really haven't seen like anything negative between them.
Yeah, we have no basis for doubting their relationship yet because we have no basis for anything.
Give it a 9.
Yeah, let's give them a 9. Congrats. Taylor and Daniel.
I really feel like this could go either way. So it's sort of hovering around like a 4 or a 5 for me. Like I might have rated it lower except that I saw that they clearly like move past what happens enough to like keep going.
So maybe there isn't that much there. Is that your thinking?
Yeah.
I'm going to give it a 4. I on balance, I really would be surprised and disapproving if I found out they ended up married at this point.
Yeah, I guess a 4 is appropriate because I still suspect they won't end up married, but we do.
But it's also
definitely,
should they get married?
Right. And should they get married? No. So I think 4.
Yeah.
I think a 4 is appropriate. Virginia and Devin. Again, I don't even know how to rate this one.
Yeah.
Because we saw so little.
We definitely didn't really see any overt conflict, but we saw a lot of a failure to connect past a certain level. So I guess it's possible that all they need is a little more space and time to connect in person to really open up about these things.
I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt from this point, just because, like, from what we've seen, we haven't seen anything bad. So I'll give it a 7.
Okay. I agree. Sure. Why not? We're just like guessing because we've seen these people for like 5 minutes each.
Lauren and Dave. I'm not feeling great about them.
Yeah. I'm thinking 3.
Yeah, that feels fair.
I think there have been couples that I felt similarly gloomy about that pulled it back and have ended up happy together.
You know what? That's a good point. That is true. I worry about them, and we also see that they are clearly getting in conflict throughout the season. So my instinct is still that they won't end up together, but like a 3, yeah. It's not that they have no chance. So a 3.
Yeah. Megan Mason.
I'm giving this a 5.
I don't think it'll be a bad idea for them to date IRL. As we discussed, that might be the best way if he's still interested, at least to.
I mean, I'm hopeful about them
to do it in real life.
I don't know. I just think it could go either way. Like I think they will try to date. It's a 50-50 for me whether it will actually lead to like a relationship.
Yeah. I think I'm still at like I would be surprised if they were together today.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't be surprised if they had dated for like a few months. I guess that's kind of how I see their vibe. Madison and Alex.
1.
Yeah, I mean, just leave it. Just let it. Like
let it die.
He was
You're
so
not right for each
put
other.
off at the idea of having to support you when you continue healing from your traumatic childhood. Let it go. Someone is going to be out there who's going to be like, I want to be the rock that this beautiful, kind, hot artist leans on.
Yeah,
as she continues her resilience.
You can do better, Madison.
And resourced life.
And on that note, that is it for this episode of Love to See It with Emma and Claire.
Love to See It is a presentation of Odyssey. The show is produced by us, Claire Fallon and Emma Gray. This episode was edited by Hannah Dickinson. Our theme music is by Tamar Haviv, and our art is by Aaron Nestor.
If you like our show, please remember to follow us, rate us 5 stars, leave a review, and of course, spread the word to all of your friends that Love to See It is covering Love is Blind.
If you want to get in touch, you can email us at claireandemmapod@gmail.com.
You can also find us on TikTok at Love to See It Pod and on Instagram at Claire and Emma Pod. And you can find our newsletter Rich Text on Substack at claireandemma.substack.com.
If you're looking for our Love is Blind back catalog, that is all there in our premium section.
I'm also on Blue Sky at Emma Gray and on Instagram at Emma Lady Rose.
And I'm at Claire E. Fallon.
Special thanks to the team at Odyssey: Eric Donnelly, Aaron Constantino, Matt Casey, Kate Rose, Moira Curran, Melissa Wester, Carly Snyder, and Hillary Shoup.
We'll be back next week with more of Grant's journey and, of course, the next drop of Love is Blind episodes.